Welcome to the Giving Room with Dave and David, where we encourage remarkable generosity, from amazing stories to easy to understand discussions about tools for giving that may just be right for you.
Hey, welcome to the Giving Room. I'm Dave.
And I'm David.
And just thrilled to have you here. Today, we're going to be talking, kind of pulling the curtain back a little bit on some of the fundraiser speak.
Yeah, this is like a Wizard of Oz thing.
Little
like
bit,
we're
yeah.
not in Kansas anymore. I don't know what that has to do with anything, but we're not in Kansas anymore.
We're talking a little bit about some of the ways that charities market themselves and what we're going to call the overhead myth. So pull up a chair, grab your coffee, and here we go.
Yeah. Well, I think part of the purpose, one of the things we've said we want to do is make sure that, just people are equipped to make the best decisions. We like to promote sort of like intentional giving. Yeah. And sometimes there's marketing and spin and things, and sometimes things that have come from a good place historically, but it may not be so good now. And we're going to talk about one of those things today.
Well, because you want to make sure when you're giving to the right place. You want to make sure that you're making a difference through your gift. As we talk about, giving is joining. And so are you joining something you should be? I mean, and that's really important. So understanding how charities, we've all seen manipulative marketing before. Yeah. And that's not just a thing that insurance people do, right? I mean, it's everywhere, including in the charity space. You just offended
like all the insurance
I'm sorry.
folks.
I have had so many mortgage things about insuring my mortgage lately because I bought a house not too long ago and everyone wants to insure it and they use all sorts of manipulative stuff. So it's just top of mind. So no offense to insurance people. It's really important. But
though you completely, right. Anyway, no. Well, this is one of those things. So again, like just from a values perspective, we've talked about the giving, especially for the believer, needs to be cheerful, strategic and intentional, right?
Yep.
And this is a little bit of that intentional and strategic part, a little bit today, just to kind of unpack this thing. So that's called the overhead myth,
right?
So if you searched overhead myth in charities, Googled that, you'd find lots of things and lots of discussion. And this is just one of those things that again came from a good place, but it's kind of evolved into something that I think has a potential to trip us up.
Right. So explain kind of in a nutshell, like what are we talking about when we say overhead?
So, we're talking about like the administration. So, all charities like take people to run them. So there's like a cost in doing that. And sometimes the operations are directly related to like delivering the program, the service, whatever the life change thing is that nonprofit's doing. But then sometimes there's fundraising and sometimes there's marketing and sometimes there's just like running the thing. And there's like the human resource piece, sort of all those things that come with that. And what has gotten us in trouble in the past is, we've seen charities that have done it wrong, right? Like they've spent way too much money and, like lots of people are getting paid and not a lot of service is getting delivered.
Right.
And sort of the reaction to that has been this thing that's evolved into the overhead myth. So it is actually saying, you'll see charities that say, 100% of your gift goes to, whatever, feeding the poor or eliminating this suffering or changing these lives. And whenever you see that, you just need to pause and say, that's not possible, right? Right.
Yeah.
So like, how can 100% of my gift go to that? Like somebody or something has to be paying for some of those other like soft and indirect costs.
And so when I'm sure you've probably heard of or seen some charities even have them on the homepage of their website, that pie chart that says this percentage goes to programming, this percentage goes to fundraising, this percentage goes to the ministry being delivered. And so, and don't get me wrong, we're not saying the pie chart by itself is bad.
Right. Right.
Because again, it's a response. It's for them to try to say, hey, we are doing good stuff and we're not spending all of your money on paying the CEO. Right. Because there were charities that were doing that, where it was basically just a big fundraising organization for people to feel good about themselves and they weren't actually doing any work. So this is a response to that, but you still should pause when you see the pie chart because it may not be all that it means.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, well, there's a really popular charity that does advertise that. Folks may, you don't have to search long to find one. Sort of a favorite of even like Silicon Valley folks.
Right.
And they actually do great stuff, except that I think they've hurt, other charities because they their marketing says 100% of your gift goes to charity. And in that case, it's basically true that happens. But the only reason that is true is that they've got like this sort of private fundraising thing going on where people actually are funding the overhead, right?
Because 100% of that guy's funding goes to overhead.
Right.
So that 100% of your funding doesn't.
Right. But you don't ever hear that story.
Right.
So you don't know that there's another you out there 100% funding the executive, the executive director's salary and the, development director's salary and all those things, right? All the administrative function and the marketing, of which that charity has tons of great marketing, this particular charity. So you just don't know that that's happening. But in your mind, you just think, well, this is a really good thing. 100% of my gift goes there. So why wouldn't I want that? And then we don't even realize that we carry that into like the next charity we talk to, right? And we're like, well, how much of my money is going to actually alleviate, this suffering or, do this great thing? And that's, I think the point of today is just that's not the first place to start, right? So that's not necessarily strategic. It could be actually bad. I mean, the larger the charity is, then maybe that metric makes some sense,
right?
But there's some small charities. Well, let's even think. We both you grew up on the mission field, right?
Right. Yeah.
So where do we draw the line between so your father and grandfather were surgeons on the mission field, right? So where do we draw the line between this is like an administrative thing and this is the program? Like when people were giving, to your family, they were supporting this medical mission in Zimbabwe, right?
I mean, essentially, my parents had to raise their salary,
right?
And, I mean, that was what they were doing. Which was that overhead or is that programming?
Yes, is the answer, right? So because there is no program especially in that context, there's no program without the docs.
And in context, I work, right now I work at the River radio station in Columbus, Ohio. What about radio is programming versus overhead?
It's probably just the DJs, right? No one else in the building is programming.
No one else is programming. So,
and that's facetious, right? Because it's nonsense because you have to have everybody else.
Well, yeah. I mean, you have to pay thousands and thousands for a music license for the opportunity just to put music on the radio. Is that overhead or is that programming? You have to pay for, we have to pay for 4 radio towers and an engineer to serve them. Is that overhead or is that programming?
Right.
It's again, as you build this out, it's completely subjective.
Yeah. It ends up being a little arbitrary. And, and some of this is pushed by even, like the IRS wants to know how much is administrative and how much is fundraising and how much is program. So that's where some of those words are coming from. But it's really not as simple as that. It's actually not as clear. I was actually just on a phone call with a smaller organization, and that executive director is both the executive director and the operations director and the development director and the program director. And if we had to sort out what he's doing at any given day, he's taking those hats off and on.
What you're telling me is that organization is 95% operational cost and 5% programming because his salary is 95% of the budget, right?
Which is ridiculous, right? So it's really, it's nearly the other. It's like really the program is this guy, which is the case with most missionaries and a lot of organizations.
And I think, but I mean, and even to kind of peel that back. Okay. So we're still even at this point assuming that programming cost is more important than operational cost.
Right.
And that's actually by itself also can be dangerous because I could save a whole lot in operation cost by hiring only entry-level people that are underqualified to work, and they won't actually do good work because they have no experience, but they're cheap. Right. And it reduces my operational cost. Or I can hire a really experienced person who costs me a little more in salary, but I get more per dollar out of that person because of their skill set, experience, and quality.
So in the nonprofit sector, so let's say I actually get more life change out of paying somebody a little bit more,
right?
Because of the experience, because of all that, and the other side of that coin is even just like a living wage or a thriving wage, right? Yeah. So there's actually been this is like myth part 2, right? There's this, because it's ministry, then there's like sacrifice, and that's true-ish, but I mean, I think we even have Paul to Timothy said, basically don't muzzle the ox while it's working, right? You got to feed the beast. Yeah. That's where he said, the labor's worthy of his hire or his wages. And that's echoed in Luke too. So it's in Timothy and it's in Luke. Well, and so there's theology for paying people kind of what they're
worth,
what they deserve for the time. I know what they're worth and deserve those.
Dangerous words.
Those are dangerous words. But the reality is, we probably should do a little bit better paying people. And we probably need to realize that the program is bigger than what we've let ourselves think. And if we're solely motivated by like 100% of my dollar goes to make this thing happen, it's just the wrong thing to
ultimately
lead with.
What we're talking here is we're actually using the wrong metric to gauge a charity when we start diving into what categories are being funded. The reality is what's more important is not what pays the CEO, what pays the operation or overhead, or what pays the programming. What's more important is what is the outcome per dollar of the charity? What is being accomplished by the charity with the resources they have? Because one of the story about I can pay two charities built a house. One paid $100,000 to build a house, and one paid $10,000. Okay, I'm making up numbers. $10,000 to build the house. Both of them had the same percentage of their funding go to, or one gave 100% of their funding to the $100,000 house, and one gave 10% of their funding to the house. But one could build 10 houses for $100,000. One could build one house for $100,000. Which one did more? The one that built 10 houses. Right. It's again, what is the outcome per dollar? If 90% of the funding went to the CEO's salary and they built 10 houses, or if 100% of it went to the service, but they built a really expensive house that's no better, because it's just a matter of how what they're getting per dollar. There's a little bit of perspective.
And I think that's the thing is like to just not.
It's a really bad illustration.
It's a little weak on areas, but I think the idea is you just got to think, right? Yeah. And that goes back to the intentional part. So we want intentional and strategic. Yeah. In our giving, in your giving. So we just need to kind of pause and think beyond, the pie chart, as you said, or beyond the percentage. And again, these are coming from good places. There has been abuse, with exorbitant salaries, or, some national charities raise tons and tons and tons of money. And then, there is a small percentage that goes into the work.
And I think that's another good point too, is that the pie chart could mean more on a bigger organization as well, because your local charity that's small market serving your community might be more involved, might be more invested in your community, might be doing great work, but it may also have more overhead because it doesn't have a giant national backing. There's no corporate office somewhere.
Yeah, there's less economy of scale because they're kind of doing it on their own.
And I mean, and there's tons of charities in that context: local adoption agencies, pregnancy resource centers, your local chat. They have to have people locally, and anyway, so it's just different. Yeah.
I mean so we've kind of beat this to death, but that's the thing is the myth is only give to organizations that have really low overhead, and I'm like, how about reasonable overhead? And even put yourself in the shoes of the people that are doing the work, as far as like what's a reasonable kind of thriving wage, which is what I think we want. We don't want to do all this great work and like hurt the people doing the work. That doesn't make any sense. And we don't want to have sort of like these arbitrary, standards that really hurt the outcome by the nature of their existence.
Well, and again, I think in the for-profit space, if everything's about cutting costs, is it a good place to work? Right. I mean, if it's all about, okay, we're going to slash everyone's salaries so that we can serve the customer better. I think that's important, but the company's going to fall apart.
Right. There's a point where you can only cut so much. Correct. You can only pay people.
Right.
You can only keep the overhead, so small and still be effective.
And so that's that balance of stewarding the resources. You want an organization that stewards the resources well. You also want an organization that stewards their people well, because people that are stewarded well do better work. They do better ministry. If every nonprofit worker has to go get a second job to feed their family, they're going to do less work and not as good work.
We need to probably think about that, right? That would be a consideration.
So both are important, but again, the key comes down to it. We talk about all the time.
Can I share one more story, and then we'll just wrap this up? So I actually remember I was working with a larger organization, actually on the West Coast, and they. This wealthier family were donors, which is a great thing, but they didn't want to ever talk to a development person, and they didn't want their money to ever fund the salary of a development person. But yet at the same time, they weren't funding enough to be the sole supporter of an organization or anything. So it's kind of we're going to make this gift. It has to go to a program. It can never go to a development person, which is probably the person that reached out to them the very first time. It's kind of weird. And then, we never want to hear from them again. And I'm like, that's very short-sighted, I thought, and a little rude, right? Like, so why can't a development person talk to you? And you want to stop the person that's out adding resources to what you're giving. It just seemed to be really short-sighted. I never understood I wasn't allowed to talk to them. Right. So I never could actually unpack, like, where is this coming from? Like, did somebody offend you early on, or like, what is the thing? But it just doesn't seem to make any sense to say, to even like carve out that specific piece, all the program, and especially not to the development people, the people that are adding more gas to the, more fuel to the fire. Don't give them anything. I mean, it didn't even make any sense, but
I'm actually going to piggyback on that a little bit.
One more thing.
Yeah. One more thing. We're going to keep adding one more thing. I believe wholeheartedly that if the development person is doing development right, that is a ministry of itself. Because as we've talked about, generosity is a spiritual discipline. It is something that we are growing in as believers. And especially at a Christian charity, if a development person is doing their job right, they're helping you grow in your faith. They're also not jealous of you necessarily. I have coached some of my the supporters of the river here. I have actually helped connect to other charities based on their personal passions and what their heart is in. And they've actually called me, Dave, I want to support this kind of cause. I respect you because of your work in charities. I know you know a lot of charities. Can you direct me towards the right place in this cause? I know that's not the Rivers thing, but it's my thing. I'm going to keep supporting you, but I also want to support this. Where do you recommend I go?
Well, and that's what's good for them and good for the river and good for everything they're doing. And at the end of the day, especially in the faith context, who are we to replace the Holy Spirit, right? So if the Holy Spirit's leading them to give to this thing, we're going to help them.
I want people to support what Jesus is doing and what he's prompting their heart to do. I hope it's the river because that's where I work. But if it's not, I want to help you grow in your faith, grow in your generosity. And as the development person, that's my job.
Yeah. No, I think we'll end up doing a whole episode one time on sort of like the development person as like a ministry person. Because I think like both sides need to know that, right? Like, so there'll be a message like to the people that do development work, and it'll be, to the donors, like, so you can just see that. Because I think it ends up being almost it can be a reciprocal, almost discipleship relationship, right? Like, I'm helping this person grow in this way, and they're actually helping demonstrate it back to me. So
it's a both and.
It's a good thing, and that is an iron sharpens iron piece there. That's perfect, and that's way better than letting some ridiculous sort of percentage drive things. We'll bring this full circle. Let's let the Holy Spirit drive things, and let's let ourselves be intentional. Let's do a little bit of work to understand sort of where the money really is going, and let's take a little more holistic approach to what we're doing. So I think that's it. That's it. So that's the myth. The pulling back the curtain is, don't get tripped up by, this overhead myth thing. So.
Absolutely. So again, thanks for hanging out with us. Again, just a reminder, right? It's about the good being done by the charity. It's not about pie charts. It's not about who they're paying what. It's about, are they doing the best with the resources they have to do the most good with it? And that may not necessarily be in the categories you think it should be. So again, thrilled you're here. Thanks for listening to us. We look forward to chatting with you again. Make sure you can find out more information at givingroompodcast.com. And again, really, really appreciate you hanging out with us today.
The Giving Room Podcast is brought to you by Giving Design LLC, where we help ministries and their donors utilize planned giving to change the world. Go to givingdesign.com to learn more. As always, a huge thank you to River Radio Ministries for sponsoring and producing this podcast. Go to riverradio.com to listen or learn more.